Welcome back to another edition of Talking Ball. It's Jack. We've got our special guest here, Josh. We're talking NBA playoffs today. And Josh, before we start talking about the series, we're recording this Sunday just after 3 o'clock, so just before the start of Thunder Nuggets game 4, and then Cavs Pacers are later tonight. The one thing I want to say before we talk about the series, I think overall there's a lot more like parity in the
hmm
NBA. We haven't had like a repeat champion since the Warriors
Yeah.
in 17-18. And I mean, all the series right now are 2-1. And I just think, like, I don't know, like the Thunder were supposed to be much better than everyone else. They're down 2-1. I know the Cavs and the Celtics, to varying degrees, have had injuries, but they're also now down 2-1. And the Wolves are up 2-1. And I know a lot of that's because of the Curry injury, but it's just like
hmm
a lot of these teams like who are up, who have two wins, the Pacers, the Wolves, the Knicks to a lesser extent, like they're not teams who you would have necessarily thought of as, conference finals teams. I
hmm
know it's funny because both the Wolves and the Pacers were in the conference finals last year, but I think a lot of people didn't think they'd be back. So I was just curious, like, what are your thoughts on the parity, or do you not see it the same?
No, I agree. And I think everyone talks about how hard it is to repeat. And I feel like this is a trend we'll continue to see, especially with the new salary cap and all the tax implications. So, especially, you already heard Shams talk about how the Celtics were going to make trades during the off seasons, which was such weird timing because it was in like the middle of the first round. And it obviously came from like the Celtics side. So it's just weird that they would report that then. So it's really interesting. And I always feel like I used to have the belief that if you have the best player on the court, you're usually good for the playoffs. But I feel like that hasn't necessarily been true. And I think last year when we were looking at the Celtics, we kind of shifted that view towards like, oh, you want to have the best team because it was like Luca with not a lot of help. He was the best player, but the Celtics had a lot more depth. But you look at them versus the Knicks, and Knicks just run a five man and five man rotation, and they're good. Mikal Bridges is doing like 50 minutes per game. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean this year, that you could use that with the Bucks Pacers first round, where Giannis
Yeah.
is by far and away the best player in the series, but it didn't
Mm.
matter because he just didn't have enough help on that team outside of Gary Trent
Every
and
once in a while.
yeah, every
Every other
other
game,
game.
Gary Trent
Yeah,
Jr.
going off for 35. Yeah.
He was the best player
So
on the court those games.
he may have been. He may have been. Um, all right. So we've got Thunder Nuggets game 4 taking place in a few minutes here. Nuggets are up 2-1. It's just crazy considering what was it 3 weeks ago they fired their coach, maybe a month ago now,
And the GM.
and the GM. Yeah, I mean, just kind of mind-boggling that they are now 2 games away from the conference finals. And the stat to me that is most, I mean, it kind of makes sense, but it's still remarkable to say out loud. Is Nuggets are up 2-1 in the series, but they have a negative 32 point differential because of how much of a blowout game 2 was, and
Mm.
they when the games get close, they execute better.
Yeah,
So,
and I think that's a lot about the OKC. People were concerned about their offense besides Shea. So even in the first round, I don't think he shot too well against the Grizzlies, but the rest of the team were so much better and they were just blowing them out. It didn't matter. So it's a little concerning. And I know last game there were some clips going around where Shea was like waving off Jalen Williams for an isolation late in the game, and Jalen Williams was like visibly frustrated. He's supposed to be your second offensive option, and with how ball dominant Shea is, I could see that that may cause problems. But then on the flip side, you got Jokic passing to Aaron Gordon, who's making every single shot when it matters. So it's really interesting how that's played out. I did not expect that really.
yeah, it's a good point. like who is I would say it's Jalen Williams, but like, you know, I don't think it's like a clear number 2 for the Thunder. And even with like taking that away, like I understand I feel like that can kind of be like I don't know, like a sports talk conversation, like who's their number 2. I don't really think that matters so much as like to your point, like who can go get a bucket for the Thunder. And it's like you look at their starting lineup, you got Shea for sure. But then outside of that, like Chet and Jalen Williams aren't the best at like creating for themselves. And then like Hartenstein's, he's not gonna do that. Dort's not really gonna do that. Off the bench, like Isaiah Joe's a good shooter. He's not going to create his own shot really. Wiggins, somewhat similar, although I think he's got a little bit more of that ability to his game. The other, the other Jalen, more of a pick and pop passing type big, and Caruso's not going to give that to you. So
Only one
it's
game. Game
yeah,
one, he popped off. That's it.
yeah. So it's like that is the one thing where it's like this team could really use like a like J.R. Smith type of player. You know, like just some extra offensive juice. But
Like a six man.
yeah, like a true six man. And they have the shooting with Wiggins and Joe, but they don't necessarily have the self creation ability
Mm.
that I think they could really use to pair with Shea. I think also some of this is they're just young, like they're really young,
Yeah.
and I think over time they'll get better. But when they are not like even we saw this in the first round, like you said, like Memphis gave them a run, especially the games in Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Because of Scottie Pippen Jr.
Sky Pippen Jr. was giving them difficulties. And I mean, they were up. I mean, before Ja got hurt, they were up almost 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there were some signs, I would say. But if you were to make a prediction, though, Josh, game 4, who do you think's taking this one?
I think OKC is going to win this one. I think this series is going to be like back and forth, back and forth. The games that OKC have lost, they've been close, and I do think that we've mentioned some of the changes they can make in order to win these games. I think Aaron Gordon, as amazing as he's been playing, like that can only sustain for so long. Although you can argue last game other players stepped up, like Michael Porter Jr. stepped up, and I think Jamal Murray had a decent game. But I just think just there's it's going to be a series of variants. They're going to make their threes. Nuggets will make some threes, then they won't. OKC will make some threes, like game two and not miss a shot at all. But I think this is the game that they take back. Shea only scored 18. I think it was how many he scored last game? He scored 18 last game. He's not doing that again. He's going to score for 30. He's going to go for 30 again. So I think this time OKC is going to win.
Yeah, the thing I worry about a little bit for the Nuggets is you mentioned at the start, like the Knicks having a 5 man
Mm,
rotation. The Nuggets rotation is pretty similar. Like
yeah,
they don't have a lot of guys. And that was with Coach Malone, same with Coach Adelman. But I'm with you. I think the Thunder take this one. I think honestly, I could see them winning by 20. I think
yeah,
it kind of reminds me of like that. What was it 2018 Cavs Pacers first round series where it's like every time the Pacers won, it was by like 20, but the Cavs would win by like a handful, and then they won the series.
yeah,
I could see something similar happening in this one.
yeah. I agree. I could see that.
And speaking of the Cavs, they're getting healthy, Josh. They're getting healthy. They're down 2-1 to the Pacers. They are. I mean, man, it really makes you wonder if they would have been healthy this whole time. Would they? I think they'd at least be up 2-1. I think they'd be up two to
Yeah,
one realistically.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
but this is gonna be a tough game for them. Game 4 at Indiana. Um, opposed to the next series we'll talk about in like Knicks Celtics. I think the talent level between the two teams is relatively similar. I give the edge to the Cavs, but I don't think the Pacers are too far behind in talent
Yeah.
level and depth. And the Cavs, these guys are banged up, so they're clearly not 100%. Um, the one thing that was funny to me in watching Game Three was it was like, all right, they got Garland back, and he just kept fouling, and he was in foul trouble most of the game. So it's like they got him back, but they didn't really get like a full game from him because even though he was back, he just couldn't stay out of foul trouble. So I'm watching for can Garland defend without fouling, and can the Cavs get something from Ty Jerome, the sixth man of the year? I think he finished third in the voting
Hmm.
there. Like he was really good, awesome first round, but it's been a struggle for him against the Pacers.
Yeah, and that's really interesting about Ty Jerome because the Pacers have been pressing full court, putting a lot of pressure on the ball handlers, and that's what the Cavs missed for the first two games, and they really struggled with. So, you want Donovan Mitchell to score and not have to waste energy bringing the ball up, which I think is why Darius Garland is so important to this team. But during his absence, you would have expected Ty Jerome to be capable of doing so, and he had two stinkers back to back. And it's interesting because they decided to only play him 13 minutes last game, even with his struggles. So I think they're just starting to play him less and less, and it'll be tough to see a situation where he gets his confidence back with, a minutes, less and less minutes. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. We both really like him, so don't know where this is coming from.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, I understand the on-ball pressure aspect, but I don't know. This is a guy with like not necessarily a ton of NBA like experience, but he's been around for a while. He was a
Yeah.
good college guard. Like I always thought he was like a steady player, and he's been like the opposite of that in this series against the Cavs.
He played well game one, which is weird. You thought like he had like 21, I think. He had 20 plus points, and then
He
game
did
two, game three, I don't know what happened.
he did, but he took a lot of shots, if I remember correctly. I think he took like 20 shots. Um, if you want to double check me on that, that'd be awesome. But
Yeah,
I
8 for
think
20.
yeah, 8 for 20. On the Pacers side, like Nemhard didn't have a great game three,
Hmm.
but that guy, there's like a short list of players in the NBA who play better in the playoffs than they do in the regular season. Thinking of guys like Jamal Murray, my boy Jalen Brunson. Uh, Andrew Nemhard is one of those guys. I don't know what it is. He gets to the playoffs, he just unlocks another version of himself, and more than anything, he becomes a capable 3-point shooter. But his talk about his ability to pressure the ball with him and Neesmith, I think has been making the Cavs a little bit uncomfortable. But in Game Three with Garland back, to your point, it's just not it's not the same because Garland can take some of the pressure off, and Mitchell just was much better without having to do everything for the Cavs. And then also getting Mobley back, I think was huge.
Right. Yeah.
I think that was Garland important, but I think Mobley really changes the game on both ends with his defense and then his rebounding. And I just think if those two guys stay healthy, I think the Cavs are going to win this series in probably in 7. I think the Pacers will win one more game, but I think it's just about health right now for the Cavs. If those two guys can stay on the court, I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's been amazing this series. Back-to-back 40-point games. What more can you ask from him taking over? I think the point about Nemhard is, he was averaging 10 points per game in the regular season. Now he's averaging five more points, averaging 15 points. And this is kind of what we were expecting from him, especially out last year
True.
against the Knicks series. And he had looked really good. So it's interesting because we thought this is what he would look like. And then he didn't look so great. He looked okay in the regular season. I mean, underwhelming, honestly, starting as their two. And now he looks a lot better. So playoff riser. Yeah.
Even in the Celtics series after Halliburton went down, he was playing well.
He was playing well.
They didn't win any games, but he was playing well.
Yeah.
And all right, speaking of the Celtics, they're down 2-1 to the Knicks right now. They are. Oh, actually, let me go back. Cavs Pacers game 4. Josh, what's your prediction? I'm gonna go with the Cavs tonight. What's your prediction?
I'm going with the Cavs. I don't think it'll be too close, probably 10 plus win, but not like a blowout. I think Garland's going to be, first game back from injury. If he's going to play again, I think he's going to be in better condition. Maybe the fouls were due to his conditioning, but I think
True.
Donovan Mitchell's on a heater. He is another one who also plays really well in the playoffs.
True.
He's had some amazing playoff moments, especially in the bubble. He was amazing, I'm pretty sure. He had some crazy games. So they don't really have an answer for him.
Most teams don't.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh, yeah, to your point, especially in the playoffs. I think I saw a stat. It was like 7 or 8 straight game ones with 30 plus points for Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
He's super consistent, and now he's done it on 2 teams, which says a
Mhm.
lot. All right, Knicks Celtics. So the Knicks are up 2-1. The Celtics have a plus 18 point differential. I think game three. Um, I think game three was expected.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought that was kind of what was going to happen. Um, I think the Celtics are they're in the driver's seat at this point. It's kind of a weird thing because I mean the Knicks nobody gave the Knicks any shot to win this series beforehand. And
Minus
then
900.
yeah, yeah. And
Celtics were favored.
it was funny to me because there's a lot of people saying like game three is a must win for the Knicks heading into it, and I was just kind of confused because I feel like as a Knicks fan, in a lot of ways, they're playing with house money. That the fact that they've won 2 games against the Celtics team, I get it. Porzingis, I don't know what's going on with him, but he doesn't look like himself. Jaylen Brown, the first 2 games, was really struggling to like move the way we're accustomed to seeing him move. And
Mhm.
I haven't heard too many people really talk about this, but I felt like Drew Holiday has wasn't quite as impactful as I'm used to seeing him defensively. Now, I can say that, and at the same time, also admit that Brunson has been having some difficulty scoring efficiently, not turning the ball over, especially game three. But I think some of that is because of the Knicks offense and the way that the Celtics are defending as a team more so than it is Drew Holiday himself. But having said all of this, there's a world where the Celtics win this in 6. And a lot of the talk about, do they shoot too many threes? I thought that was kind of nonsensical. I think a lot of it was what kind of threes are they taking? And
Mhm.
I saw a lot of stats going on, like especially after game one, where it's like, oh, a lot of these shots were like not contested or open.
They're like open, yeah.
Yeah, but I was like watching the game, a lot of them felt rushed. Uh,
They were just bad setups, bad
yeah,
plays,
yeah.
waiting for the shot clock to go down. It was just
And then
sloppy.
in game three, a lot of their shots were in rhythm. They
Mhm.
were comfortable. It was just a totally different shot diet. And I'm sure if you looked at the stats, they'd be a similar in terms of how many were open versus contested. But just watching it felt completely different. The last thing I want to say about the Celtics is that the one thing I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is how good their defense has been.
Yeah.
I don't think that's gotten enough credit. Like defensively as a team, they've made the Knicks really struggle for I mean all game 3 and then the first 2 games, the first 2 quarters and 9 minutes or so, and then I don't know what would happen, but all of a sudden a switch would flip and then the Knicks would be able to score and the Celtics just couldn't. But game 4 I think is the Knicks that's pretty much a must win for the Knicks if they want to have a chance to win this series.
Yeah, I think the Celtics do a really good job defending the three, and I think that's what makes them comfortable taking so many threes. There's that value of taking threes versus two and whatnot. I think especially when Mikal Bridges popped off in game two, a lot of it, he had like zero at half, and then he went on that 7-0 run by himself. But if you were watching it, a lot, and most of it in the beginning were middies, like a lot of mid-rangers, and then I think he took a three to cap it off. But I think that's where the success is for New York, because even if you look at their three-point percentages and then their 2 points, like Jalen Brunson is a great mid-range shooter. He loves that spot. And Cat hasn't been shooting too great from three, but I know he needs to kind of like space, and that's his role. But um, I just think it's tough because the Celtics kind of force you, they're going to shoot threes no matter what. They don't care what anyone says. They're going to take their threes, and it's hard to keep up with those threes by just shooting twos. But I feel like the Knicks kind of have to do that because they don't really have a ton of reliable three-point shooters.
They don't have high volume 3-point
Hmm.
shooters, and to your point on Cat, he's only taken 7 threes in the 3 games.
Five of them were last game.
Yeah, 5 of them were last game. So they need to figure out a way to get him more involved from the 3-point line. Because to your point, Brunson and McCall are better shooting from mid range than three. OG can shoot from both, but I think that's one of the things. Like game one, he was like 6 for 11, I think, from three,
It was amazing game one. Yeah.
and they haven't had this anywhere near anywhere. I was gonna say the same, but I think he's been in single digits games two
Yeah,
and
five
three.
points and 2 points. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's been pretty far off from that game one performance. I think that's one thing. They got to figure out how to get him more involved offensively, and I think some of this comes down to Brunson. While if you look at the numbers for game three, they would look like he played well. I didn't think he really played that well. If I'm being honest, game three, he scored well, but I didn't think he did a good job of getting off the ball and letting some of the other guys get going. And with McCall, like when he went on that stretch in the fourth quarter, it happened because Cat and Brunson were on the bench, so they were running plays for Bridges to
For him.
start,
Yeah.
and that's when he got cooking with the mid range, and then he had a nice fadeaway on Drew Holiday, and then he capped it off with the three when Brunson came back in and found him. And I think they got to figure out a way to get to kind of like stagger maybe a little bit more and just get Bridges involved, get maybe try to run some plays for OG
Hmm.
because then as the game goes on, they're more in rhythm and they can be more useful when the Celtics. The issue for the Knicks right now is the Celtics just basically don't guard Josh Hart. And in game one and game two, for that matter, he made them pay. And in game three, I don't know. He had like a hard fall. He came out of the game for a bit. I don't know if he was banged up, but he didn't play like Josh Hart typically does. So if we're not gonna get like the offensive rebounding and him taking the open threes and driving, then I think the answer for the Knicks is they got to play big more often.
Hmm.
Like a lot more often, I think is the way they got to try because I know it's a small sample size, but in 25 minutes of the series with Cat and Mitchell Robinson on the court, the Knicks are plus 25.
Oh, Joe Mazzulla knows that. Joe,
Yeah,
Joe
yeah.
Mazzulla, he knows about Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Joe Mazzulla is scared of Mitchell
Yeah, he's
Robinson.
terrified of him.
Yeah,
Terrified.
he does not want him on the court. I was listening to like a Knicks podcast and they were talking about maybe having Robinson start the game
Mm,
for Josh Hart, and they're saying like one maybe Missoula doesn't start with the hack of Mitch
right, right.
because then you're in the bonus like the whole quarter. You don't really want to be there. And two, the Knicks seem to play better. And three, Josh Hart has not been able to consistently free up Brunson with his screens because Drew
Mm.
Holiday is just too strong. He's just going through him. But Robinson can. And if Brunson gets a little bit of separation, he can get to that mid range shot that you're talking about. And he just really hasn't been able to get space in this series.
Yeah,
And that a lot of credit for that goes to the Celtics, who've done a
I
really
know.
good job.
Who do the Celtics have guarding Mitchell Robinson usually?
It depends, like who they have on the court. If they're playing like with one big, and it also depends on who the Knicks have on the court. It will either be Horford, Porzingis, or Tatum, or Cornette, depending
Because
on who the
Tatum's usually
Knicks
on
have.
Towns, right? So if you were to start both, I don't know if they would actually put Horford on Robinson because that's what the Knicks love to do. We saw that game one late. They were just having Horford's guy switch on, set the screen for Brunson, and he was torching Horford, especially like with how tired he was getting. So yeah, I mean, I think you have to put him on there, but that'd be a good point. I mean, that sounds like exactly what the Knicks want to do. Just make that switch all day long. Jalen Brunson would love that.
Yep.
Curious if they'd actually put Tatum on him at that point, but
Yeah. And it's the other thing I saw somebody say was they could have Josh Hart. It's like they spam Josh Hart on ball screens, and it's not been working.
yeah,
And it's funny to me that a lot of the adjustments have to come from the Knicks, who are winning right now this series. But it's kind of obvious the Celtics they collapsed in 2 games, and they could easily be up 3-0 right now.
they could, yeah, they could be.
I think Hart, if he set some off ball screens for Cat, maybe they could free him up for some threes, some flare screens, and then if both guys go to Cat, maybe Josh Hart can get a run to the rim. Or if they switch, maybe Cat has a better matchup. He can go to the post, etc. But I think that's a good wrinkle for the Knicks that they're out there because, especially the last 2 games, the Knicks have been unable to score in the first quarter. Like they've been getting to like the 4 minute mark with like maybe 10 points.
Yeah, under 20 almost every time.
Yeah, it's been brutal. It's been brutal. They got to make some adjustments offensively, and that'll help them defensively. And then defensively, they couldn't guard the three. But I think some of that was the Celtics were due. They were
Yeah,
just
they
due.
were due. They shot 50%. They took 40, they made 20. You know, it's not like their volume ever went down. They're chucking 43s a game. So
Yeah.
they made 20 of them. It was due. We all had that Celtics three players like just take all their threes in a parlay. Eventually it would hit, and it was game three. But yeah. It's interesting you say that about Towns because that the Knicks they're up and we're talking about how they have to make these adjustments because Towns, I think during the first 2 games, he was actually great inside. Like he looked really big and he was playing really physical. And he's had a ton of rebounds. He's been great as the center. But to your point, it's like the Celtics were up those games big. So it's crazy that we're saying they need to switch it up. But I think it's so true.
Yeah.
And Towns likes to shoot the three too. I mean, I know he looked great, down low, posting up, being like the biggest guy on the court. But yeah, they need to try something new because yeah.
It's like, and he can't get the trail threes because they've typically got
Hmm.
a wing like Tatum on him, so he's not able to get those. To your point, he was really bullying Al Horford, like driving on
Hmm.
him, scoring on him in the post, etc. But they're still down by 20 in the first 2 games, both times. So something's. I think they got to figure out how to get their wings going more than anything. OG and McCall
Yeah,
offensively.
I would say those guys were the spark of the runs for game one. Like OG was phenomenal game one,
Yep.
and And then late game it became Brunson. But like I think OG was really, really pivotal for their run. And then game two, obviously Mikal Bridges had that run in the third or the second where he looked really good. But you're right. I mean, if you look at we talked about OG's numbers, Mikal too, even he hasn't scored more than 15, I think. So you still we talk about how great he's been, but those are like short spurts. I mean, you want to see more consistency, especially playing these 51 minutes, 43 minutes. You would expect a little more points from a guy worth 5 first round picks, but he does
The
it
Knicks,
defensively. So
yeah, he's been the guy they traded for defensively in the playoffs. Wasn't the
mhm.
case in the regular season. Um, all right, prediction, Josh. Game four. Who you taking?
I Celtics. I think they're going to blow them out again. I think it's going to not blow out, not like maybe like 10 plus 15 around that
Yeah,
range.
that's what I think. I think Celtics win by 10 to 15, somewhere in that range. Not a blowout like NBA terms blowout, but a double digit win. I think the
Yeah.
Celtics are very aware that if this game gets to be close, the Knicks have the advantage. So they're going to do everything in their power. Like whenever the Knicks would go on a little 5-0 spurt in game 3, even though the Celtics were up by more than 20, it was like timeout or they would hit a shot. Like you could tell the Celtics understood the moment. So I'm with you.
And
All
I think
right.
Celtics are a team of like runs. You know, when
Yeah.
they were down 3-1 versus Miami and they won like three straight or two, was it 3-1 or 3-0?
3-0. 3-0.
3-0. And then they won three in a row, but it wasn't enough. So they're also great away. So I can
Great.
easily see them win these two away games. But if the Knicks were to win one, it probably have to be game five at TD.
Yeah.
That's my only thing.
Yep. And just remind me, like Jalen Brown finally game 3 realized like, oh, I should be taking it like inside on these guys and then let my
Mhm.
threes come later rather than trying to shoot the threes first. He was
Yeah,
much better.
much
Um,
better.
but the difference to me was Horford and Pritchard. Pritchard was going crazy.
Pritchard was amazing.
He's
What we
got
expected from him.
yeah, yep. Okay, last series, Josh. Warriors Timberwolves. The Wolves are up 2-1. I think of these four series, this one is even though the last game was competitive. I think it's the least competitive to me on paper right now.
Yep.
The Warriors just they don't have offense
No.
without Curry, and the Wolves got a lot of guys. They got a lot of guys they can trust. They got a legit 8-man rotation. They've been playing much better. Like I think it was like post All-Star breaking before that maybe even. They've been
Yeah,
playing really
post also.
well.
Hmm.
And at this point, Anthony Edwards is clearly the best player in the series. So the question to me is, can the Warriors steal game 4 and give
No.
themselves all right. I'll just finish the question, but I appreciate that answer. Give themselves a chance at Steph Curry coming back. You
So,
say
I
no.
mean, are we gonna see? I don't know where this came out of, but Kuminga's playing again for some reason. I mean, I agree with it, but I don't know why he's coming. He's getting minutes again. And we talked about how last game seemed close, but it really wasn't. I mean, you got a 30-point game from Kuminga, 11 of 18. I don't think we're going to see that again. That was like the main contributor besides, I mean, Jimmy Butler had an amazing game, but I think we're expecting that from him. And other than him and the occasional 14, 15 from Buddy Hield, it's nothing. So I don't really know where this Kuminga Steve Kerr decides to play him again and giving him big minutes. I know Steph Curry's injured, but even when Jimmy Butler was out in the Houston series, he was only getting like not that many minutes, like 17 minutes or so. So it's weird.
I I I think he doesn't have a choice. Like he has to play him. He played well in limited minutes in game two, and then they gave
Mm.
him more minutes game three. He played even better. I think I don't know if he I don't think he can keep this up. He's 3 for 4 from three, which for him is unbelievable. And it's just like I think the Warriors, yeah, they didn't have a three in the entire first half of game three, which in 2025 is insane.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when I mean, you're running out a lineup with Kuminga, Butler, Green, Podzemski. Like, who would be their fifth? I guess Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield is the
Oh,
guy
yeah,
you got
yeah.
to worry about, from the 3 point line. And if Buddy's not getting you 25 plus points, it's just going to be really tough math wise for the Warriors to win, even though they're doing a really good job defensively at limiting the Wolves' scoring. Like they have been at 100 or just below, just above, I should say, for most of the series. So shout out to the Warriors' defense, but unless the Warriors could sign Klay Thompson right now, and even right now, Klay Thompson, I'm not sure how much he would help, but at least he could make some shots for them. Like they desperately need offense.
Yeah, I think, and the other thing is with the hamstring injury, I don't see Seth coming back. Even if he, I think the rumor is game 6, which is a week from today. I think that's very reasonable. So, I mean, you're playing without him for 2 more games that you need to win just one of those. And if he comes back, we don't know what shape he'll be in. You're going right back into this playoff setting. It just doesn't look great for them. And honestly, Anthony Edwards hasn't been that great. He had a good game in terms of scoring, game 3, but the first 2 games he was subpar scoring wise. So I think he has more in the tank as well. And they just seem to be a better team.
Yeah, and Randall's been playing well.
Double double.
Yeah, I think Ant's ankle is messed up,
Hmm.
so I was kind of surprised he scored as well as he did game three, as he didn't seem to have his explosiveness, and then I think it was third quarter he just took off from like a couple feet inside the free throw line and dunked all over Kevon Looney.
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta watch that again. That was insane. And I don't know, Josh. Like, let me ask you this: if Curry doesn't get hurt, and I know this is a tough one for you to answer based off of your bias here, which is that Josh hates the Warriors.
Sure.
If Curry doesn't get hurt, who because they won game one basically without him, which is pretty
Without him, yeah.
impressive. Who are you taking to win this series?
I would have taken then Golden State probably in 7 because even game 1, like you mentioned, it was without Curry. Wolves only made, they were like 5 for, what was it, 29 from three, like 17%. And they're not like a known 3-point shooting team or that great from three. But if you look at their more recent games, I think it's more true to where they are at. Like game 2, 16 of 37, and game 3, 10 of, or 13 of 24. You know, they were knocking down their threes. And a lot of it honestly comes from Anthony Edwards. He's like, his volume from three this year is ridiculous. So I think it would have been close. And I don't think anything from the Rocket series really told us that Steph is as like he struggled honestly. And I know that Houston's defense is amazing, especially with the Thompson, a man, right? That's a man.
Yeah,
Yeah, a man. But Timberwolves have good defense too, so I think it would have been close. And they had the Golden State's an older team. Longer series don't fare well for the older teams that, especially coming off a 7-game series the round before. So Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would. I would have took the Warriors in six. Um, but I think it would have come at a cost for them going into the Western
Yeah.
Conference Finals. And yeah, I mean Curry did struggle against the Rockets, but the Rockets did also run like a box and one zone
Yeah.
against him, and they made it a mission to make sure that he couldn't score. And even in Game 4, I think he had maybe 2 points at the half. He finished with, or sorry, in Game 7 against the Rockets, he had like 2 points at the half, but had like 20. Finished with over 20.
Yeah.
He eventually got hot. The Wolves have the defensive personnel somewhat similar to the Rockets, like a Alexander Walker, and McDaniels,
James, yeah.
even DiVincenzo to a lesser extent. But I don't think they have the scheme like the Rockets. Like the Rockets, it's like that's their identity, and I don't feel like that's like the Wolves' identity. But either way,
I agree, but I think they have a better interior defense because like the I think that was the one thing about the Rockets is
yeah.
Sengun, Adams, like those are great rebounders, but you're not too worried about them in the interior. I mean, Amen is great on the perimeter and interior, but I think that's why Jimmy Butler did pretty decent when he was playing them. I mean, I think the Wolves, it's a little tougher with Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle.
Well, Rudy Gobert. I don't know about old Julius. Uh,
Also, if there was Steph Curry, you wouldn't be getting. I promise you, Jonathan Kuminga, you wouldn't be seeing him. You wouldn't be
no,
getting 30 points out of
no.
Jonathan Kuminga or
You'd
18
be,
points game two.
yeah, you're right. You'd be getting zero because that's 70
Zeros.
minutes he'd be playing.
Yeah,
So, all right. I don't I don't think this is the most necessary question, but I have to ask it. Game 4, what's your prediction?
yeah. I think it'll be the Wolves, but I think it might be close. I think it really comes down to Ants. I think we really have to see in what condition he is with the ankle injury. I mean, this game, 36 points, 5 from 14 from three. That's the kind of stat line I would expect from him, but we haven't seen that yet. So if he looks good and he gives another performance like game three, I think they win it.
I'm going to take the Warriors.
That's fair.
I don't think
I,
Kaminga, I think he's going to get like 14 or 15, but I think Buddy's going to get going again. I think Jimmy will have like 25 plus, and I think their defense will continue to do what it's been doing and give the Wolves some trouble. And there'll be a slight crack in the door for the possibility that Steph comes back.
yeah,
But
they're gonna try. That they're gonna fight for it.
exactly. So, all right. Any parting thoughts here, Josh?
And what do you think the next series is gonna end in as a Knicks fan? Six?
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but that's what I thought. Yeah,
You're not even gonna
it's
get one?
well, I feel like we already got two, so I think it's been a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
series
that's true.
as far as that's concerned. It's just the Celtics they're better on the road.
Yeah,
I think part of it is like at home when they're shooting their threes, like you could hear on the TV like like the sound the crowd makes when
yeah, yeah,
it's like or
yeah,
like and then it's like the like that sound
yeah.
after
Oh
every
yeah, yeah.
missed three.
Yeah,
The
for sure.
like ugh. You
It
could
got
hear
worse
it.
and worse.
Yeah. It got worse and worse. And on the road there's none of that. They're just people like yelling at them and I feel like it helps them like lock in more. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just the theory I'm running with because pretty consistently now the same group of guys have been better on the road than they are at home. And they've just been here before. Like you said, like that Miami series. Like if Jason Tatum doesn't get hurt early on in it was like the first minute or two of game 7,
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
they could have easily been the first team. I don't know about easily, but they could have been the first team to come back from a 3-0 deficit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, these guys, you can't bet against the Celtics. It was a lot of fun to win the first two games. I didn't understand quite what was happening, and it was really bizarre that it happened basically the same way, two straight games. But unless the Knicks make some somewhat significant adjustments, all three games have pretty much played out the same, except for the last quarter and a few minutes. So as long as the Celtics don't collapse, it's hard for me to see what changes unless the Knicks play Robinson more and probably McBride a little bit more because he's given them good minutes as well. But it's tough. I mean, realistically, is Thibodeau going to do that? No.
No.
So this is what we're looking at here.
If the Knicks win one, we should do a live pod to Game 7.
I'm down. I'm down.
Commentary. Commentary. Live watch along.
Yeah, watch along. Yep. Well, speaking of watch along, tomorrow we're doing a little watch along for the draft lottery. So tune in here. Please like this video. Should have done this about 30 minutes ago, Josh. But like this video, subscribe to the channel, drop your comments below. See you guys next time. Peace.